Okay, so I have kind of a two-part question. The first one is when you're doing mobility work or like what we like to refer to as priming before your workout, what's actually happening to the body? Like why am I all of a sudden improving my ankle mobility because I did, 10 minutes of ankle mobility exercise before I squatted? And then the second part is I'm just interested in my aesthetics. I just want to look better. Why would I even care? Why do I even care about improving my mobility? Besides preventing injury, is it going to benefit my aesthetics?
So I'll talk about the first one first was what exactly is happening with mobility. Now, if you were to look up the vast amount of research on what's going on with different tools like soft tissue mobilization, stretching, things like that, there's a number of different theories and not a single one of them are like 100% proven. So if you ever speak to someone that's like, yep, it's 100% this, they're married to one camp. There's a number of different theories. But I would say for the most part, when we're talking about stretching and we're talking about soft tissue work, most people are in the belief that a lot of it's more of a neurological response within the body. You're not actually creating a lengthening of the muscle because we're not adding sarcomeres in length. So for people out there that don't really understand muscle architecture and anatomy, think about your muscles almost like a Lego stack. You have different building blocks. Well, those are called sarcomeres in length. That's basically what the breakdown muscle building blocks are. And when you can stretch a muscle, and you maybe cast it. So let's say someone had their elbow casted completely straight or something like that. Sometimes if you cast someone for weeks and weeks, their muscle will actually physically get longer because they will add more sarcomeres in length. So basically they add more Lego blocks to the architecture of the muscle. But that's usually you take the cast off, it's going to go back to its normal length within a couple weeks. So it's tough to really make the muscle longer that way. So what we see is that when someone does a stretch, if you're stretching a muscle for maybe 30 seconds, and then afterwards you retest your flexibility and you see it's longer, what happens is you're not actually making that muscle longer, but you're decreasing your sensation of pain. So you have a neurological adaptation to the stretch at which you just imposed on your body and allows you to move into further range of motion. The same sort of thing happens to a point when we're doing a lot of soft tissue work, which is why we often don't see a lot of stretching or soft tissue work create long-term adaptations. Some people will be like, oh, foam rolling, it doesn't work at all. Well, there's a lot of research that shows that it does. The changes and improvements in flexibility just aren't very long-lasting. They're usually maybe about 10 to 45 minutes in length. Same sort of thing with stretching. So whenever we're talking about a mobility or flexibility regimen, most of the research is really only like 6 to 8 to 10 weeks long. There's not really like long duration stretching protocols in the research to see if we can actually add more sarcomeres in length. Can we actually make a muscle physically longer long term? Now we see a lot of these like ballet dancers and things like that literally they stretch every single day for years and years and years. So we believe there's the potential to physically change the length of a muscle. But often what happens is that when we're doing mobility work, we're changing our sensation of pain threshold that you get when you push a muscle to its physical length. And you allow yourself to get into a little bit more mobility range of motion. Now, the thing about mobility versus flexibility is that flexibility is purely the ability to elongate a muscle. Mobility has to do with movement. It's how a joint moves, how you move in space when you're weight bearing, things like that. So for example, you could have crazy tight hamstrings, yet someone could squat to full depth. So we have to understand that there's a difference. And a lot of times people just love to stretch, yet they still move like crap because they don't understand how to use their body afterwards. So that's the difference between the mobility work versus just stretching to stretch. Now, when you talked about someone that's looking for aesthetics, I think the big thing to understand is that mobility work is to allow better movement, better freedom of movement throughout your training and throughout your life. If you're there in the gym to be able to just look better, if you can improve your mobility, it will allow you to access different parts of your physiology, of the movement of a bench press, of a squat, of a push press overhead. That could then allow for different stimulus on your body that could then allow you to maybe have different types of adaptation. There's a number of different research articles that'll show that someone who squats deeper sometimes, and this is, again, certain research articles, there's always conflicting evidence, that sometimes you may elicit a little bit more glute max activity if you're squatting deeper than someone who's maybe only doing a 3/4 depth squat or a half squat. So someone that could potentially squat deeper may potentially allow themselves to have different physiological adaptations to their strength training that prior they weren't able to get. And then I think it's just about life. We don't want to be that person that can't bend over to pick up a box off the ground because we're so stiff. So aesthetics matter, yes, but having the ability to move the rest of your life is very important as well. And being able to access that strength that you're creating in the gym so that you can pick your kid off the ground, when he's a young kid, being able to put a box on the top shelf when you're 80 years old, being able to walk up and down stairs, that is, in sense, is mobility, and strength allows you to access that mobility in a function.